stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Hillis, could you take attendance?
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Hirakawa? Mr. Lannesy?
Hello.
Mrs. Mack? Here. Mr. Strang?
Here. Okay. Review the agenda. Any additions to the agenda? You want to talk about the agenda?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our November Board of Education meeting. So tonight's presentation actually is one that features students, which is very exciting for us. The past few we've had some kind of more formal presentations. This one will feature some great work of our students, particularly in the area of the Royal Recognition Program, which is something we're excited to keep as a tradition of the board here.
Okay. Speaking of royal recognition, we're going to move right into that. Do you want to talk about what we're recognizing tonight?
I'd be honored, so thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lannis. So again, thank you all for attending, and I can thank you all from Builders Club that are here in the audience as well. Those of you that have been here before or kind of know, and I hope that is the case because it shows that that is tradition, we're very always, as a board, we're excited to recognize students through the Royal Recognition Program. And basically, while we do things at the building level, B awards, swag awards, things like that, this is a chance for the Board of Education to recognize either groups or individuals, regardless, for basically epitomizing our mission statement. As you know, our mission statement, it's on our walls, it's on the bottom of our letterhead, and it basically is, in essence, about going above and beyond as a citizen, as a human being. So it's not just about academics, but it's really about, having great qualities that lead to greater citizenship, outside of GD as well. So we always put that out there to our community, to our staff members, and say, if you see students or a student that kind of captures this, any essence of that mission statement, make a nomination. And so Mrs. Mitchell, our advisor of our Builders Club, came forward and nominated her Builders Club. So if that's okay, I might ask Ms. Mitchell to join me to kind of explain. And I will say, as someone in the building, it was very evident why she would nominate Builders Club, because I feel like every time we go down the hallway, we see a sign that ends in Builders Club. So there's a lot going on by Builders Club, but I think Mrs. Mitchell will kind of capture exactly what inspired this nomination.
Yeah, they're a very enthusiastic group, which I love. So I just read a little sweet thing about them, but I'm so proud of this year's Builders Club. They're a young, super enthusiastic group that love to help out. I have the pleasure of seeing many of these kids 2-3 times a day in drama and art club too. It is my pleasure to educate and lead such community-minded individuals in their years here at Gardner-Dickinson. In just a short few months, they have already taken over our school's recycling collection. They're morning reading buddies with their younger students. They assisted with the health fair and successfully ran a food drive. We're now beginning a hat and mittens drive, taking on an adopted family, planning for our first school dance this year, and caroling at Van Rensselaer Manor. I look forward to many years of service with this fine group, and I hope this is the beginning to a lifelong love of service to others. So proud of them.
And if I may, please, yes. Mrs. Mitchell captured that perfectly, but if I may say, when we as a board kind of crafted the idea about coming up with a time capsule, our first place we turned to was Builders Club. And what was really great was the Builders Club said, absolutely no problem, went and solicited. So basically we have our Builders Club, we have our capsule. It is with our construction firm. It is on Twitter if you want to see a picture of it, but it is ready to be buried. We just have to find the right spot. We want to make sure it stays buried and not redug up against. But again, Builders Club is our go-to no problem group, and they went around and gathered a lot of interesting items that will be very interesting to find in the next 200 years. So again, Builders Club, yet again, a no problem place. So if I will, our tradition, as you know, is, Mrs. Mitchell, I'll also ask you to join me if that's okay. And students that are in our audience, we'll ask you to join us up front. We'll ask you to do our traditional support members. If I can ask you to rise. So you get to do the walk of fame and basically catch some handshake. What we'll do is we'll then also ask you, if you're here, to kind of stand over here and stay so we can take a group picture and get that on our social media. And those that aren't here, we'll make sure to read their names on the morning announcements. So Mrs. Mitchell, I'll let you do the honors.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so we have Missy Anderson. And a lot of our members are very busy, so they couldn't make it tonight. Ryan Bates. Madeline Cominol. Madeline DeFries.
No, Oh, you're our first. This is great. You get to be our guinea pig. This is great.
There you go. And shake your hand.
Oh, wow.
Excellent job.
Thank you. Great job.
Samantha Flag.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our secretary, Gabriella Geis. Tiana Gonzalez. Our vice president, Molly Grape. One of our co-treasurers, Angela Lanesey. Gianna Nigro. Izzy Niver. Chloe Rodriguez. Athena Sebald. Ryan Strang, our president.
He's babysitting. Builders Club
And
Spirit.
Ryan's so sweet. I think he's our only 7th grader, I believe, and
so,
he's
yeah.
popping in all the time to like check how we're doing, guys. And Chayton Young. Congrats, buddy.
Thank you.
And Mrs. Mitchell, thank you for nominating and taking the time to do that. So actually, can I ask you to join your Builders Club if that's okay?
Yeah. Should I? Yeah.
Oh, we'll take it.
Oh, okay.
So again, those that weren't here, we'll make sure they are recognized on Morning TV tomorrow. Let's see. And folks, if you're, you guys already got it. Perfect. Great photo op. I'll let your parents go first. Okay, over here, guys. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Nicely done. Thank you. And thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us as well.
You can stay.
But if you need to.
Just give everybody a minute.
I think that sounds
Wants to
great.
leave, to leave. Okay. Moving along, 1.4, approval of minutes of the previous meetings. We had one, October 19th, 2017. Somebody to make a motion? Second. Questions? No? All those in favor? Aye. All those against? 1.5, acceptance of financial reports. We have 3. We have the internal claim auditor's report, October 2017. We have the monthly treasurer's report with budget transfers. And we have the school tax report for 2017-18. Somebody make a motion? Have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Okay. 1.6, visitors and communication. communications to the Board of Education. We received one thing, a thank you card from the girls' soccer team. It's a nice little card. Dr. Reardon, Board of Education, thank you for all your support for the soccer season. We had a successful season because of you. We hope we made you proud. They always make us proud. So, and then signed by everybody on the team. So, yep. Letter B, opportunity for the public to comment. Do we have anybody?
Mr. Yeager.
Mr. Yeager?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank and benefit for the benefits you put on for the veterans. I talked to a few of them while we were here. Very, very happy. It's something that some schools don't do. And by the group from here and from the Legion of Lionsville, happy to be a member of it also. We would like to thank you. Those that
Yep. We're very happy we could put that on, and we're very happy our veterans have done what they have done. Thank you. 2.0, reports to the Board of Education. Board of Education board discussion reports. I don't have anything. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up?
Sure, kind of this fits probably more under the board category, but Ms. Cass and I had the opportunity, I believe it was October 19th?
21st.
21st. A Saturday. It was one of the Saturday workshops held by Questar 3 where we went to basically have a morning with the commissioner. Now, it turns out when we arrived, it was a morning with the deputy commissioner because the commissioner was ill with strep throat, it sounds like, the night before. But we had the opportunity to spend the morning with the deputy who would, I have to say, was actually very informative to us. It was kind of very open dialogue. And I'll turn over to Ms. Castle to kind of speak on that. It's really kind of an open, unlike other sessions we've attended that was kind of more scripted, this was a little more of an open state of the state and then what questions do you have. And I think I found the topics that came up out of the group. It was basically Questar 3 board members, superintendents, that's 22 component school districts. Rather dichotomous. I think it was everything from mental health, which seemed to be a very hot topic that came up, to cursive handwritings. And that, interestingly, I think was about an hour-long discussion. So it was mental health issues and waivers, and then cursive just kind of stayed on the floor for a while, which is not a topic you usually think of discussing with the Deputy Commissioner of Education, but it did stay and kind of have its own staying power with different school districts, and basically each district kind of weighing in on kind of what the role of it is, the value, what grade levels, things like that. Ms. Castle, anything you found that was?
Well, I mean, as you said, it started out a little scripted, which I was a little concerned about because she was clearly reading stuff, and I'm like, this is not going to be that great. But it really turned into a great dialogue when she opened it to the floor. The main topic she pointed out, mental health was the top one. That 1 in 5 students suffer from some form of mental health, and it goes so much unnoticed in schools. So that brought a lot of discussion about different things that could happen. She talked about the new standards, and there's a 3-year rollout period for that, and information is on the Ed Department website about that. Talked a little bit about the school board role and aligning budget needs, and reiterated that there's no APPR through 2018-19. I think I wrote that down right. So she just brought a lot of information. As Dr. Reardon said, once she opened the floor, many topics, and I was amazed too at cursive of how it really came up as a big topic for why isn't it taught. These kids don't know how to write anymore. They don't know how to sign their name. You know, they're not learning that. So that was one of the things. She also had some handouts, and I believe these are on the website, correct?
Correct, and also I was just going to say to the board, and I did take copies, if you'd like, they're basically everything you should need to know about ESSA.
But you can get
And
these
the next
from
one.
the Education Department. And the new, you heard of No Child Left Behind Act, well, that's the old thing. The new one is Every Student Succeeds Act, which has been submitted to the federal government. And they have these handouts, which are 6 things every school board member should know, 8 things every educator should know, and most importantly, 5 things every parent should know. So if you go to the NYSED website, these will be on there. I don't know, we can maybe put a link from our website over to these. But it kind of gives you a synopsis of what the ESSA is, what it's supposed to do, why does it matter, and what parents need to know about it. So I think these will be informative to folks. So overall, I thought it was another great session. I love that Questar does these things that we can attend to at no cost. So that's a nice thing.
It is, and they typically do 2, and the second one we are signed up for again as well, which is, we're signed up for the second one. They always offer 2. It's in January, and it's with the superintendent from Ithaca City Schools, Dr. Lavelle Brown, very, very engaging speaker, and Mike Ford, who's done some consulting work with the Questar boards and actually superintendents as well. And those are also free of charge, so it's very nice.
Good session.
That was a good session.
Good. Thank you. Moving on, 2.2, district/superintendent program report.
Thank you. So I will leave some of the building level pieces up to Dr. Yotis, some of the more local pieces which have been great, some a lot of curriculum instruction pieces happening. So you'll hear about instructional rounds. We had started that update last time, but Dr. Yotis will kind of give the concluding piece because we had our visitation here and some of those results with that. The Veterans Day celebration, I would say, really marked the difference between our last meeting and this meeting. Mr. Yeager did mention that, and I really appreciate that. If you don't mind, I would like to read one note that we did receive from someone that was based out of Maine who did attend. So I just feel that's okay. Dr. Reardon faculty, I'm back at work and telling colleagues about your school's Veterans Day program. Many are asking why more schools don't have similar programs. I'm a 22-year Air Force veteran, and my wife, Jackie, served 2 years in the Army. We were very humbled by the efforts of your students, teachers, and staff. As the program unfolded, it was clear the kids had spent time learning about the military, being an American, and respecting our flag. These topics should not be controversial, but in today's climate, that is not always the case. I hope you share this curriculum with other schools. What your team did truly reflects my USAF core values: integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. A heartfelt thanks from our family to yours, and of course this family. So again, I just thought I'd share that. We did share that with our whole staff, but I will say that was pretty impressive. They also came all the way from Maine to join us. We had over 35 people attend, and I think back when we started this, we started with about 6, I think, when this first became our tradition, but we've grown this to be about 35 plus. What was very exciting this year, which really epitomized what I think makes a K-8 school great, was it really was a K-8 venture. It wasn't just the 6th graders doing something or the 7th graders. It was really kindergarten making flags to 8th graders writing essays on what it means to be a hero and an American. You saw kind of a whole village kind of approach to this assembly, which made it really exciting. So it really wasn't just a committee or 1 or 2 grade levels, and that's really what we hope to do with everything we do in this building, make it a K-8 approach. So to me, it was very exciting, but also symbolic in many ways as well. Our construction being another major thing, you'll see, well, actually you won't see unless really we're looking around up back, so it's really not visible, or you're on Whiteview Road. But our construction does continue. We are actually at the point of erecting the walls, so our foundation is complete. We're at the wall point. We're actually at the point of getting close to enclosing, and at which point you'll start to see the steel arrive. So we're hoping for the steel to arrive for the building, hopefully by the first week in December, to be outfitted with that foundation. And so with that, with the construction of this go, we are in the process of our pre-K planning. Our pre-K planning committee met about 2 weeks ago. Our next meeting is to be determined. We're just waiting on some more information from those that are doing some subcommittee reports. But as you can see, this pre-K program is really becoming something real. Last year it was something that we were thinking about. We hadn't broken ground yet. Now as the building symbolically grows, it grows into more of something that is shaped like a building, so does that pre-K committee. So over the course of the past couple weeks, we did some site visits, and the committee used that as a chance to say, okay, so what are some truths that we are looking for in a result of our pre-K program? So rather than just kind of exploring those questions, we actually were able to answer some of those in an ideal world. So with that, meaning, looking at a half day versus full day, kind of leaning towards the idea of a full day program, looking at transportation, looking at obviously maybe staying away from transporting students and having them driven here, and also how we'll staff that, what kind of staffing we'll use, and of course what budgetary impact that will have. So that's one thing that, as much as the budget, you'll see the calendar is in here. It's an early start. We typically would approve this in December. We wanted to start with the budget calendar approval this time because budget really will be a key piece as we finish the building. It's really funding these beautiful classrooms that will be built and completed by the end of the summer. So while budget is always a moving target, depending on tax cap and pieces like that, we are trying to at least put as many pieces in place for the budget that we can, despite that there are still many unknowns. Again, the building, health insurance costs, things like that. So we are starting that budget building process. We are in the process, going along with budget, of beginning our looking at our teachers' contract that is up this year. So that is a big deal for us because we want to get that negotiated and obviously set, because that is also a very big budgetary piece that we look at. So that, along with our policy review committee, is prepared to meet. Actually, those that are on the committee, an email was just sent about an hour ago. We will be meeting on Monday to review our 6,000 and 7,000 series. So we finally did get a date that was available for most. So we will be at the 6,000 and 7,000 series, which really takes us pretty much through. We're getting close to the end, and that means we really did almost a complete policy review, because that leaves the 8s and 9s. So we're in great shape, but that is coming. And of course, our next pre-K date will be once we have a few more pieces of information to call the committee back together. But as you can see, a lot of things are happening. It's early in the year, so lots of great things that are fall-based, obviously from Veterans Day to Halloween that passed. But as you can see, even the budget building process and planning for that building has started long ago and really is in flux right now, too.
Okay, good.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Dr. Earl, did you say the policy meeting is what, Monday?
Monday the 20th. Yes, this coming Monday. that was the date that seemed most popular. So I just sent that.
I don't do reading.
It's quick.
Okay. 2.3, principals report.
Okay, I'm going to start by just giving you a little bit of update, again, from the instructional rounds, which happened on November 1st, which was very exciting. We ended up having 15 educators from Middleburg, Rensselaer, and Brittenkill coming to conduct. They were in 11 classrooms, K-8. They spent an hour and a half in the classrooms and then came back and compiled the data, it's just an extremely productive and positive day. The team of educators, they observe in the classroom, they take copious notes, then they come back and they transcribe their notes onto sticky notes, and then there were posters all over the room because several educators went into one classroom. So 20-minute rotations. So 11 classrooms got seen by 4 to 6 teachers. Those teachers came back, took their own notes, and posted them on chart paper throughout the library. Then once everybody posted theirs, then they go around and they read everyone's, and then they look for patterns within the classroom and then within the 11 classrooms. So a very hardworking day for these educators, 15 that came out here and just really worked 8 to 4 o'clock and really analyzed and struggled over every sentence a teacher said and critiquing and analyzing and looking for patterns. Specifically, they were asked to look at our problem of practice, was the task we asked the children to do and the questions. Are they rigorous? Are we providing enough challenge to all of our students? So they were particularly interested in what type of task, not so much as what the teachers were saying, the questions they were asking, but what were the kids engaged in, and were they engaged in really productive, meaningful tasks? So they look at all of this. They looked at the patterns, and really what this is supposed to do, this instructional rounds, is supposed to be a high leverage, something we can implement in a very short amount of time. So it's not like, hey, you need to redo your whole ELA and math curriculum. It's really something that can be done in 3 to 6 months, and perhaps we could have someone come back at the end of the year and look again, say, did something improve? And what they found was, their recommendation was, if our tasks were at a higher level, or some of the questions and tasks, could we move students? Could we differentiate more for the higher students? Could we even get all the students to move a little bit? So I just gave you a for instance here. So at the level of tasks, for example, in ELA, when a teacher reads a book and asks a level 1 questions, a who, what, where, something they can go back and just recall within the text. So an inferencing question would be, how do you think that character feels and why? So that would be considered a level 2 question. A level 3 question would be determining the author's purpose and how it affects the interpretation of the reading. That'd be like a level 3 question. A level 4 question would be describe and illustrate how common themes are found across texts from different cultures. That's a 4. And what the overall consensus was, if we increased our tasks and questions to be more of a level 2 and 3, and the facilitator who ran this said every educator should be thinking about, at every lesson or activity we give, we provide a level 1, 2, and 3 question. There should be some basic recall questions, there should be some inferencing, and there should be that, let's think about even beyond that. So what they found is that'd be something that we can implement and they think could make a big difference. One of the things that every group came back and said is, oh my God, your kids are so great. You have the best kids, and we can't believe how compliant the children were. They did anything the teacher asked them. And so that piece, they're like, if you asked them to do a little bit more, they look like kids. That would do a little bit more if your expectations were just up a little bit. So in all of that, we took that feedback, and again, they could see analyzing tasks from kindergarten to 8th grade and looking, we're a little maybe weak on question 2 questions, level 3 questions. So as a building, so it wasn't pinpointing any one teacher, it was looking as a building what your area of need was, and it was maybe adding some of those higher level questions. So the first step in rolling that out was suggested to give that professional development on to the teachers. What is a level 1? What are level 1 tasks? What do they look like? what are the questions like, what's that level 2, what's that 3, and how would we start putting those pieces in any lesson, everyone doing it, whether it's special area or K-8. So that was yesterday at a faculty meeting, and we talked a lot about that and how that could look, and that's something that we are committed to do very soon. Like starting tomorrow, let's all try to look to differentiate a little bit more and add a little bit more rigor. And again, we'll keep visiting this as Dr. Reardon and I go around. We could talk about this in the formal observations through APPR, and just use this really, we hope to be a really high leverage piece that we add here that's not, costing us any money or doing anything different than we normally do, but for teachers to really think about the levels of tasks and questions. What are kids busy doing? And how is that? Is it just busy work, or can we really push them? So that was exciting, and that was the outcome, and we started that initiative, I'd say yesterday, after school with the staff. Science, for 2 days this week, we've had somebody from Pennsylvania in here to train us on the new science standards and the new kits that we purchased at the end of last year. So really looking at aligning our curriculum and new materials to the next generation, the standards, which has been a lift. It's a lot, and it's great work. And I just to say, because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to everyone, this year we did something a little different in K-8. Instead of having 2 teachers in the younger grades teaching science and 2 teachers teaching social studies, there's new social studies frameworks and new curriculum that needs to be developed there, and new science curriculum and standards. We thought perhaps it might be overwhelming for one teacher to try to be juggling so much new curriculum. So we started science teams. So instead of educating, 15 teachers and a training on the new science standards and the new curriculum and materials we purchased, we're training 8. So today the team of 8 really spent the whole day working on these standards. So even in the little grades, kindergarten has a teacher for science and a teacher for social studies. And when teachers have to flip the classrooms instead of the kids getting up and going to the next room, it's worked out, but really getting, that team of 8 really strong instead of trying to get a team of 17. So we did some work in science and social studies. 2 days, someone for social studies, Tasha Anderson from Questar, was here to work with that social studies team, developing new inquiries, and really looking at how to dive into the new standards. But just that way of using inference to drive the instruction is so different than where we were assigning, here's your 20 vocab for the week, the test is on Friday. It's really inquiry-based science and social studies, and it's exciting. So that little bit of a team was strategically placed this year, and I think it's really paying off. So there's been a lot of curriculum and staff development in those areas. That's it for me. Good.
Good. Sounds like good busy.
Yeah.
On the peer thing, the educators that come in, how are they chosen? What are their qualifications, I guess, to come in?
So
judge
there's a
others?
2-day training that you have to attend 2 full days before you can go into a school. And again, this facilitator, Andrew Rudd is his name, who's doing this. He's trying to get Cap Region on board, Questar, so districts are going into this. We had them come for 1 full day in September, and then when we had a 2-day training.
You might recall in the spring we did a co-sir with Britton Kill, so we spent 1 day here. So our teachers that participated in that are trained, so
we
they can
have
be
about
deployed to go out else.
6 or 8 teachers trained who can go on and visit. Those teachers had just been trained, and this was the first. So what's exciting is we were the first in the region to do this, to have a visit. There hasn't been one in Cap Region yet, and hasn't been one in Questar. There's been a lot of the training, but no one was going to be that first to raise their hand and say yes, and we did. So I think it's exciting. They've asked us to go share at Questar and Cap Region to share the experience and how that benefited both us and those other districts. Britton Kill is on board, I think, in maybe January of having a visit. Since we did one, they said they would do one, and so then our teachers would go on that site visit. but it was just as helpful for them in watching them in this library, just analyzing and talking about best practices. It was just amazing. And their takeaway from that day, and many of them were saying, you know, I know why they do that in there. You know, I do that. I'm going to go back and reflect on how I can, you know, go to that next level. So just watching that other end, like, wow, this was great staff development for those, you know, educators that are, you know, really just centered around what was happening in our classrooms and relating it to their classrooms. So I'm excited to now take it to Brittenkill or whoever else jumps on board. But
And I'm glad to hear the kids were good, because being the day after Halloween,
were-
that
they
could
were
have been
great. They
either
were
comatose
great.
or off the wall.
Yeah, no, they were.
Just so you know,
Who's
Cooper
that?
was on a field
The
trip.
kids were the kids were great, and that was one of the things. They're like,
When I
they're
realized
so,
the date, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that could be bad.
They said they're so compliant. They do whatever the teacher said. You know, like that is amazing. Like we think that if you ask them to do a little bit more, they probably would do a little bit more. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. So it was just a great process. I'm very proud that we were a part of that. So thank you.
Awesome.
For allowing
Nice
that to
presentation
happen.
yesterday too. You did a very nice presentation yesterday.
Just want to roll that out to the staff. Let's go. Level 2 and above.
That's great.
Anything else? Okay. 2.4, PTA and SEPTA update.
Great, good evening. I'm Nicole Hermanic. I'm the co-president of the PTA. And I provided you all with a copy of my summary, and I'll just go through it quickly. The membership update at this point is we're pretty steady. We the last couple months we rose in our membership, and I think we're at a point where we've plateaued now. The North Greenbush Police Department memberships are still pending. They're seeking their union to pay for those, so there's been a little back and forth. And Paul Konipka, our vice president, has been working with some businesses in the North Greenbush area getting sponsorships or business memberships, which we hope also will help with some community involvement later in the year. Some of the current fundraisers we just have, Mrs. Mitchell just completed is working to complete original artwork. We had a restaurant night at Muscatello's on the 9th, which was a big success. We got $300 profit. There's a Pies Taekwondo that's going on right now. That's due mid-November, or tomorrow, the 17th. And we're doing Santa's Magical Express at Yankee Trails on the 30th of this month. And as of the 13th, there were 15 reservations already confirmed. School Pictures is on here because the makeup date is going to be December 5th. The current supported events, we have the school banking started in mid-October, which is going well, and Science Crew started in middle October, which is going well. And we have the funded field trips so far for kindergarten, first, second, and third. Our second PTA meeting of the year was this past Monday on the 13th, and we plan to schedule our next meeting in earlier 2018. Future fundraisers coming up will be the Holiday Shop, which is always a big success and very exciting for the kids. That's going to be on December 7th and December 8th. The shopping occurred for that last week, I believe, and that receipt was submitted to our School Bucks program, so that was good. And actually, while I was there, I took a picture. I think we're 11th right now. They have a list next to the customer service desk. Yeah, so we're
Did that
getting close.
include Christmas tree shopping?
It was the 8th, so I don't know, it was the 8th. And I forget the date that you guys went shopping.
Me.
Yeah, right.
Not
Well,
you guys.
you didn't go? I thought you went.
No.
A couple of exciting future events that have just come up recently that I'm really excited about. One of them is a YMCA Skills, Confidence, Character Building, Fun After School program. So this is going to be piloted with our grades K and first grade because they don't often get involved or get opportunities to do some of the after school clubs. And it's going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour, commencing hopefully after Thanksgiving break. It's going to be about a $5 drop-in or $50 for 10 weeks. One of the things I'm very excited about is Ashley Fragomeni, I always get her name wrong, Fragomeni, police chief's daughter, right, is interested in utilizing some of the older grades and helping out with this as like a character building opportunity. which I love that idea. Any experience that we can get in like that would be amazing. And also Mrs. Mitchell, who was just here but had to run, approached us about an art club, which I'm really excited about because it's teacher involvement, some teacher ideas that they're bringing to us that we're working with them on. And that's going to be grades 2 through 5, we think, on Monday nights a little bit later. Cost to be determined, but she's interested in teaching some advanced art skills to some students and parents that have inquired over the last few years about having some sort of additional art opportunities for their children. So we're really excited about those 2 things.
Can I ask about the YMCA?
Sure.
I see you have 2:30 to 3:30.
Yes.
Would that mean that the parents would have to pick up the kindergarten and first graders, or would they take a late bus?
I believe the district has approved the buses.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really 3:20.
3:17.
Right.
Yeah.
So they
Oh,
would-
sorry.
They're going on the middle
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
late, they do
They're gonna
late
take
bus
the
like
late
they do
bus.
for Science Club now.
Yep.
And would they have to go both days? Because I know Tuesday is bowling, so a
No,
lot of
it's
the
drop
kids
in.
do bowling.
Yeah. It's
So, okay.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have anything you want to add?
Oh, I was just going to throw on there, and thank you, Nicole, for the update. If that was okay, I was just going to update also at the last meeting, Darcy did
Yes,
a fantastic
please do.
presentation that kind of captured all these pieces in, actually, and we have some members in there as well, that captured the kind of a different lens that we're hoping to use on every program we look at. It basically was the idea of our changing demographics. Now, as you know, is one of our board goals or board focal points this year is to kind of examine or at least observe the changing demographics of Wine and Skill. And this might, again, I think every demographic of schools are changing with, you know, family incomes and economies changing. But Darcy did a fantastic job of kind of showcasing the idea that our, you know, we've changed from 14% free and reduced lunch to 26% at this point, the free and reduced lunch over the past 7 or 8 years, I think, right? That was the number. So 26% of our students are on a free reduced lunch. That's basically 1 in 4 students are, you know, living at or below the poverty line, and that's not including Alice, which I'll turn that over to Darcy to kind of elaborate, because actually Darcy does have a piece. But we just thought this presentation was a very short but kind of informative way of, as we plan these programs, and as you can see, what's very nice is you can see each one of these things as they're put out here. I've noticed that as even since that meeting, as they're released, you see the asterisks of, we will make sure that that's afforded to students that maybe don't have the economics to do that. So donation activities, scholarship spots, and I think as a board we're looking to kind of do that as well, to really change the lens of as a school, as we offer things from, again, even if I may, another place for our drama club production this Friday, you know, to phrase things as it's an optional donation. You know, it's not a requirement to pay to get in, but it's an optional donation, meaning it's not precluding a family from participating if they couldn't do that. So even just changing things, little things like that are sustainable, I think have already happened since that meeting, but just that awareness that there are students out there that might not be able to access things like Science Club, Santa's Magical Express, and to be cognizant of that as we plan. So.
Yeah, so just a couple of the statistics that I gave, and actually Andy pointed out a really good point. So the first statistic I gave was in 2008, that we had 14% indicated in that program. However, in 2008, we only had 300 students, so that percentage, or that comes out to about 40 children. But now we have 385 students, so that comes out to about 100. We have 100 children identified in our free and reduced lunch program. And that doesn't include this other group that the United Way has indicated, and that's called ALICE, and that's Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. So that's your employed group, 2 working parents, but they make less than about like $60,000, could be 1 working parent, but the income is $60,000 or less. And they can't make their ends meet. So the cost of living in Wine and Skill costs more than what they're making. So they have to make choices between food, prescriptions, those extra things. So that's your ALICE group. We can't tell you exactly what that statistic is unless everyone in the school submitted, you know, their income. So we can estimate that based on what it's estimated in Rensselaer County. Rensselaer County is estimated in 2014 to be at 38% for your poverty and your ALICE grouping. So we estimated ours to be at 33%, so that would be 1/3 of our children are in that food insecure category or working poor category. And so we really want to take a look at that. What can we do to better meet that group academically? You know, there's lots of studies out there about academics and, you know, lower income as far as vocabulary and language and, you know, what they hear, how many words they know, you know, by the time they reach kindergarten, right? So looking at how we can help them academically and making sure they're getting their basic needs met, making sure that they're getting, you know, their breakfast and their lunch, and maybe we'll do, you know, weekend backpack program, you know, to help with food or, you know, things like that. So we just want to keep that in the forefront of our minds. We want to ensure that all of our public school activities are reachable for students because we are a public school. And all of our activities should be reachable, attainable, and anyone who's interested should be able to attend. So that could, there you have it.
And a lot of times, I think it's little things, and I know, like, for instance, the spirit wear. I know, I was reading through comments on social media when the orders were going in, and last year they were told their class was going to be a certain color, so they bought the t-shirts accordingly. Now this year they had to buy a different color. You know, last year they were told it was going to carry through with them, so you buy it a little bigger, you don't have to spend the money again. This year it got changed, so then they had to buy new t-shirts, and that little things like that add up for a lot of people. So to keep things like that in mind will be
Exactly.
very helpful.
And that lens, I might have mentioned this before, I thought just changing that lens is really what's sustainable. You know, because programs sometimes can come and go. You know, and those, not that programs aren't important, but programs come and go. But when you change a lens, that can last 20-something years. You know, okay, when we, like you said, when we do those things to say, okay, well, some of us, well, 75% of us love that we can access 8 different kinds of T-shirts or colored T-shirts. What about those that can't? So what do we maybe do to make sure they can access that? So just that piece. Athletic programs, you know, things are, oh, it's only a small fee to participate of blank. Well, that could be that choice money, if you will. So then how do we make that accessible to that student that might say, you know, and also how do we as a school tease out that someone is not participating based on that, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will, pretending that they don't want to participate in baseball because they can't afford it, rather than they would love to if they could. So just things like that. I think keeping that in the forefront of our minds will help. And I've already seen that change. Even actually, if I may, as we get our 8th grade fundraisers ready, as you know, we do a lot of fundraising for that field trip. It is a culminating experience, and it's an expensive trip as well. That's always the fine line, I think, in fundraising is you do need to fundraise to sustain the programming that we do enjoy. Like, again, the DC trips, other field trips. But, for example, the movie nights. You know, last year we looked at that, and that was a great fundraiser, but it was rather costly to families. So we're actually even changing the language of that, lowering the price and making it, again, a donation and a family donation. So rather than per child, $7 per family suggested donation. So if you wanted to go to the movie, that's fine. You want to donate $7, that's great too. You know, so again, those things that we're still raising money, but we're also not precluding someone from having a night out. So that's
Thank
big.
you. That's huge right there. Right. Awesome.
And that already happened. Imagine what will happen by next year.
Right. That happened in 3 days. Yeah, so we're getting lots of great suggestions too that are rolling in. And, I'm just so happy that, you know, people are embracing it. Telling us, you know, what would be good.
I think it's one of those things that until it's brought to your attention.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had any idea.
No one really.
100 kids.
Yeah,
Nobody.
that's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids. Right.
You know, you don't think of Wine and Skill as
Yes.
having that many, and it's.
Yeah.
You
Yep,
don't
and like
see-
I explained, you know, it's transition and young families are moving in, and
Mhm.
that's great. We're vibrant, you know, we love that. We want more kids, you know, but we just got to help them through the tough times till
That's
they're
right.
a little older, some more promotions. They're making a little more money, you know, so yeah, it's all good. I'm supposed to give an update on SEPTA, aren't I? So you got to hear me again.
If you're gonna,
Okay.
That was your SEPTA update?
No,
or
it's
if you have
not. No,
something
that has
else?
nothing to do with SEPTA. It's just a little additional. So the board of SEPTA met 2 days ago. I've been very busy this week. And we have some new events that we're planning in February. We want to do like a CSE 101 night and explain to parents, you know, kind of about that process. And we're going to have a panel. So the 5 of us that are officers are going to be on that panel. And we're also trying to get someone who's really knowledgeable in county and preschool services to come and talk about those issues as well for parents. So it's in the beginning phases of planning, but we're excited to be able to offer that. We also want to do a gym night. We just, you know, the free Lego night. We want to do a gym night, maybe with, you know, those scooters and, you know, different fun things in the gyms. How we want to talk to our gym teachers and their, you know, resources and tap in to see what we could do for that, and then also invite buddies who would want to come and help special ed kids go through that. So those are the 2 things we have for early next year that we're planning. Sorry, I'm not as organized as Nicole, and we're a little more laid back.
You can check the fundraising out. We have much to do.
Oh, right. Oh, I'm sorry. We are doing something at the parade. I totally forgot.
All right.
Yes, we're at December 2nd is the town holiday parade. If anyone wants to put in a float, you could win a cash prize, but we're not doing that. But there's the parade, the tree lighting, and then we will have booths. SEPTA's having a face painting table and booth where we'll be handing out our information, just getting people in the community to know about SEPTA and who we are and what we do. So we thought that'd be a good place to be and hand out information. And the Builders Club, our wonderful Builders Club, hopefully some of them will come and help me face paint. Bridget will be there. She's, often graduated, but she'll still help me face paint. So, so come and see us inside. We'll be inside where it's warm while you're out at the parade, where it's cold. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, good. 3.0, appointments and authorizations. 3.1, approve CSE, CPSE recommendations as per attached. Need a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Lancy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.2, approve the memorandum of understanding regarding athletic participation between the Wynnesville Union Free School District and the Ava Park Central School District. Need a motion?
She can motion.
Okay, and I think you can talk about that, Dr. Ritter?
Sure. You'll recall this was tabled at our last meeting, and we kind of resurfaced it again. In between the last meeting and this meeting, we did just check it out with our own council and to make sure that it was obviously, we had some questions as a board. And pretty much the conclusion of both councils, both Ava Park originally drafted the kind of the shell of the language, and also our own council, was that this is the commissioner's reg, so basically local control is kind of taken away. So as you recall, there was some discussion and debate about whether or not this something like this would pull from current modified programs and what the participation would be. But again, that is at the commissioner's level, so it's really was meant actually purposely to be at the commissioner's level and not be at the local school board control, because they wanted to ensure K-8 students had access to all either modified programs or playing up, if you will, and not be precluded by schools that might decide not to do that. So basically, this MOU in front of you is a model I'd like to use, or I would recommend we use, with our other 3 districts in terms of how the process would flow. It follows the commissioner's flow as well in terms of district collaboration, approval, who does the physical, but also the transportation piece is key as well, because as you recall, right now the commissioner's reg doesn't spell out, so districts could be held liable for that transportation. So my recommendation would be, if this was okay with you, we would use this with Britton Kill, Troy, and East Greenbush, and use that same model, so that if we did have a child that was pursuing this flow of participation, we'd have something to go with.
I wasn't at the meeting last month, but I did listen to the recording, or audio, which I've never listened to before, but it was good to be able to hear the discussion that took place, and I agree with so many of the points that were made, Eric, and concussions and health and taken away from our teams. And I know we really don't have a choice here because of the regulations, but it blows my mind that there's so few K-8 schools in the state that there was enough leverage to get this type of regulation passed by the department.
You know where it actually came from, and actually we were solicited by Greenwood Lake, which is down about an hour, 2 hours more in the Bear Mountain, Woodbury Commons area. We're very fortunate because many K-8 schools do not have an athletic program at all. They have more of an intramural piece, so that's where I think it came from. Was even Manans doesn't have a real strong, it's more of a friendship league piece, so that's where the advocacy came from, of schools that couldn't compete. Well, we have to have some place that our children can not feel as if they're slighted. So that's where I saw the real groundswell of athletic directors and those schools that had glorified intramurals. So that's where it came.
And there's no financial strain on us with this at all, right?
Not at all.
Because everything's going to be on the parent if they choose to do it.
Exactly, and the transportation piece keeps that clean. And also, I hope this goes without saying, this would be a very unique situation, and also this would be something that we would do very, very carefully and with a lot of counseling. That's the beautiful part of being small, is that we certainly, having only 70 plus 7th and 8th graders combined, this would not be something that if a child said, I think I want to, participate in X, this would be a lot of conversation with the family, the academic impact of missing the end of the school day. That's certainly not. It's not conducive to the current school day, and that wouldn't change. So again, there'd be many, many obstacles. This would be a very rare case where this was probably the right choice, but we would of course go through many steps of counseling that family through that and that child. Are you sure? Do you understand what you're taking on? And also remember, they'd have to be accepted on that team as well. So that's also a matter of assuming that there's a spot on that team, or there's, if they tried out for varsity basketball, that they made the team. So again, but yes, certainly there'd be a zero cost impact. Hence why I think it would be important if we use this to have that with every one of our other three. And Tech Valley, of course, not offering athletics, so it's not.
Any other questions, discussion?
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Landacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.3, approve Sam Davis, Chris Phillips, Amanda Rich, and Courtney Townsend for extracurricular appointment as basketball coach for the 2017-18 school year as per the WTA contract.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Go ahead.
These teams are currently existing. We actually were supposed to have these on the agenda last time, but so they did start.
Okay. They want to get.
They'd like to. I hope I can continue because it's going to be a rough day tomorrow. Then.
Couple of basketballs.
Never.
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Landacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
Approve Samantha Swart, sixth grade teacher, for a leave of absence for child rearing starting on or about March 29th, 2018, and returning for the start of the 2018-19 school year.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? I don't think so. It's pretty self-evident.
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Landacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.5, accept the 2016-17 external auditors report.
Motion?
Second.
Second.
Sure.
Just by law, we have to, as you recall, we had the presentation last time, and by law, we have to approve that. So I think we just became so excited. I forgot to ask you to make the motion to approve it. So
Yep.
it came out very well. That's why we were excited. So.
That's right.
Yes, no dings at all. It's great.
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Landacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.6, approval of the 2018-19 Warrensburg Union Free School District Budget Calendar. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Wanna talk about it?
So, as you recall, my earlier report, though we typically did this in December, we thought it was kind of best to put it on the agenda now. This basically is pretty much the shell we've used in the past years. We found this to work very well. We've tried to maximize our board meetings, so we weren't adding excessive workshops. But of course, if we needed to add that of course could be added. But at this point, we tried to maximize, and as you can see, that's where March 29th was a budget workshop if needed. As you know, we typically come down to the wire because we wait for state aid runs, which rarely come out before April 1st. If not April 1st, that's why we put that if needed, meaning if we didn't have any new information. But we, of course, into April if we needed to add something because runs came out April 1st or 2nd, we could, of course, go from there. So you'll see it pretty much follows. A lot of this is pretty pro forma. These are requirements by the state. We did add, and I followed because I think this was our availability last time, you'll see that our budget hearing, May 7th, I believe that is a Monday, because I believe that worked out. We needed basically a budget hearing to occur before the 10th?
7 days prior.
7 days prior to the vote, and I feel like that Monday, May 7th, Mondays seem to be acceptable to the group. But if it doesn't, if I put the 7th in, but if you wanted to change that, we certainly could. I mean, it could be the 8th. Right?
I have one question.
Seven?
March 30th
Yep, could be.
is Good Friday. I don't know if that affects anything. We're not in session.
That's just a legal notice gets put in the
Okay.
newspaper.
Okay.
And this is all for our regular budget.
Regular school,
This has
yes.
nothing to do with the additional funds that we were going to talk about.
No, but it was a perfect transition. It's like you
Okay.
read my mind.
All right, because I didn't see that anywhere on here.
That's-
So, okay.
This is a
All
cue
right,
card
all
for
right,
that.
so
so
let's stay on
that's good.
task. Then we'll divert. Looks great.
But speaking of budget, I was actually going to bring up something. So if this works, does this work?
Yeah, but
for
we
the
got to
group?
vote on it,
Excellent.
right?
Yeah,
It's on
the
the floor.
table, so you probably
Yeah.
want to vote
Yeah.
before I transition.
Mrs. Castle? Mr. Landacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
So since you brought this up, actually, I'm glad you did. This is a perfect transition point as well. As you recall, our last meeting, and we were missing, actually Mrs. Castle we were missing, but I know we're missing Mr. Hirakawa this time for another event. But we did discuss, because one of the pieces that still was lingering was, as you know, based on changing costs and some, obviously from a project that started in 2014 to one that's being built in 2018, our costs are higher for our building outside of this coming up than obviously what was originally projected in 2014. So our suggestion, and as you recall, was to close that gap that we have. And again, that is a gap. Also, we added some things too. We added the terrazzo tile flooring. We added new lockers. So some of the things were positive additions to the building at large. The new lighting in the gym, things like that. The change in the gym blowers. So these also were some additions that required or constituted that deficit. So my suggestion to the board was to consider basically transferring upwards of $500,000, and again, that's from our capital reserve fund. That would be at 0% or zero impact to the taxpayer, because again, that is money that is earmarked for the capital project. And once again, that's money that would be used to pay down our debt when we ultimately do borrow. And as we've said before, at this point, we can get at least to the spring before we borrow. That's probably when we want to go out and borrow, and that's a good thing, because we're borrowing we're not banning, we're borrowing. Just to recall that definition, we're borrowing one time rather than locking in for a long-term rate. We can say, okay, at this point we need to go now, so we'll get a bit of interest rate. But still, that capital reserve fund was earmarked to be spent on the capital project. Basically, though, we would like to close that deficit by, rather than borrowing more and going to the voter to ask for an increase in a tax, which again, the project is a zero tax impact. We'd like to we'd like to put money towards that deficit that we have anyway. So, and again, that would be the 0% impact to the taxpayer. And also, in the end, if we put $500,000 towards, here's my recommendation for you to consider. Should we use $300,000 of that? That's fine, because that'll ultimately go down to paying the eventual loan that we do take, the eventual borrowing. So it's not like it's lost. But my recommendation would be to go maybe transfer more so rather than transferring twice, because it does require a vote of the public, even though it is basically a budget transfer. But because it's capital reserve, it can't just be moved like we would in our general fund.
Can't just move from checking to savings.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
And, although we're basically going to do that,
That's
yes.
what we're basically doing.
Just not online.
Got
And
it.
it's our money.
It
We already
is.
have it
It's our
saved.
money, it's
Yeah,
already
yes.
there. Right.
And we have more than that in the fund, so it's not like it's straight. I mean, that's my recommendation would be,
Right.
you could certainly go more. My recommendation would not to be, because you still want to keep that nice solid base
Yeah, we
to
gotta
pay our
have
current
something,
expenses
yeah.
and still also put towards our final principal. So two things for the board to
So,
consider.
yeah.
That's my recommendation in terms of an amount, because also I do think a healthier contingency budget should be built in. As you know, right now we have a bare minimum built in. I would feel more comfortable with more contingency money in there. So right now the deficit is about $260,000 to kind of close that gap. I feel more comfortable having that leeway of, should something happen, again, we are getting into the winter months, things like that, heating costs, it would be nice to have that cushion.
So-
We're gonna spend this money on this project anyway.
Exactly.
Correct.
It's just when are we gonna transfer
When
the
are we
money?
going
Correct.
to transfer it? Okay.
And if I may,
So-
so two things to consider. I'm so sorry. I know I keep
That's
elongating
okay.
this sentence. So besides the consideration of transfer would be, it does have to go to the public to vote at a
When?
minimum of 45 days. So the board has the option of either going out as a separate vote, which could occur not at this meeting, but obviously we'd have to adopt language to authorize the transfer, and then from that point on, so if you did this, let's say the December board meeting, you have 45 days, you have to wait a minimum of 45 days until you could go to the public for that vote and authorization to transfer, and of course the language will be worked out with our attorneys. But the consideration of the board is, do you want to do a separate vote, or do you want to make that part of the May budget vote, anywhere in between? So there are pros and cons to each piece. I have weighed that, we have consulted counsel on that, they do have an opinion. But of course, again, it also varies depending on the sentiment of the board. So kind of twofold decision, how much, and then of course, when would you like to make that transfer, if you will.
So do we need to motion from the floor on that, on those two separate things, or is it just discussion?
At this point, it would be discussion, and then what I would do is, based on your discussion, if you were in agreement, I would bring that back in December in the form of formal language that you would adopt, that basically authorizes the district. The amount,
I'm
basically.
good with 500,000.
I agree with the amount as well.
Yeah. So good.
Better to have a little bit more up front than have to, like you said, maybe do two transfers.
Yeah. And then my question about the vote, is there any cost to doing two votes?
There is a cost.
Arabella's shaking her head, yes. Yes, there is. If you decide to go out to the public to vote in February or March, there is another cost. And do we know how much that is, Estelle?
Is it just the cost of the poll watchers or workers? I don't think.
We have to send out a notice.
So we can,
So whatever we send out in print, to print it and to mail it. And then we
To
have
all
our.
taxpayers.
To
all taxpayers.
Postage isn't cheap today, as well.
Postage is not cheap.
And
No.
then our poll workers, and as of now, I've not heard, but the county has been letting us use their machines for free. They have also been printing our ballots for free and our absentee ballots. But I have not heard if they are
Okay.
extending that into this year or not. But as a courtesy to us and working together and letting them use our space, we've been getting that perk for free. So as of
Okay.
now, I'm hoping it's still for
And
free.
is May too late
and
to do the vote?
to put
on
in
the money?
perspective too, just for, cost-wise, besides poll workers and that rate,
Yes.
it's about $3,000 when we do a mailing. Because remember, you're printing, you're writing, you're printing, that's not including the cost of, but then the postage, you're mailing it, and it's usually a ply-fold. So just to put in
We're gonna
perspective, I
roll
think
the
we do it.
dice and go with May if we can.
Our council recommends, I just throw it out there.
Please share.
You say, would you like to know? Okay.
Yes.
Well, speaking of that, I was going to tell you. Council recommends May, and only because it's felt that besides the extra cost, that also if it can be explained as one. Again, it still a concept needs to be explained to the taxpayer because people see $500,000 and say, "Where's this coming from?" And my tax, but you still have to explain that. The opinion of council is that you're going to either explain it and reach taxpayers, or you're not. It's still going to be seen as, and even though it's a 0% tax impact, it's still going to be perceived. If you're not reading it, you're not reading it. If you understand it, you're understanding it. So the idea, and that's just one logic, is that perhaps grouping it in when you're marketing your budget and getting everybody out to vote is better than perhaps a random, But that's just one opinion. It truly is an opinion. There's not like a scientific formula of if you do this, it will,
Personally, I think that sometimes it's an inconvenience to have to come out in the middle of winter. It's cold out. Do you really want to go out and vote? It could be more convenient to just have it all at once.
People are just busy trying to make ends meet, period.
Does May cut it too close for what we
Yeah, that
will
was my
need
other
the money?
question.
No, we would.
May
We'd
is
be
good.
good. I mean, we would probably be looking to borrow in May. Anyway, which is pretty good because remember our project
That is good,
so
yeah.
Then what
Yeah.
happens
If we have an issue.
right, we could do May.
If they don't approve it?
Well, then we would take
if they don't approve it? What happens if,
Or if we need it prior to May.
Great question.
They're gonna approve it. I have faith.
We calculated that we feel based on what we're looking at expenses, we could get to May
Yeah.
without the transfer.
And I think there are some time constraints, like there's some legal publishing that you have to do before you bond and that kind of stuff, so I'm not sure what that time frame is, so we
Right.
have to check on that.
So we would start that,
But I
obviously.
think we can get to May.
We could get to May.
And if they don't approve it.
We would, well, okay, as a perk, we could do
Take the
it.
building back down.
We would need to probably go back again and say, are you sure? And maybe revote, because I think, if I'm saying it, we could make the payments to close the debt, but we'd be moving things around and then hopefully getting a yes vote to replenish other accounts, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
So we're gonna
Sounds
get
good.
it from somewhere.
It would be very,
Yeah.
we'd be using the Christmas fund, if that makes sense, to pay for the final bills, and then hoping that someone replenished the Christmas fund, so, to put it in banking perspective, for holiday fund.
Yeah.
So again, but there's either, that's just one opinion, and actually, it always ends with, but then again, each community is different. Some would see it as, is that too much on a ballot, is that? So, totally,
I'm already with May. If we have the fund, one more piece that you gotta evaluate to look at, I think, like you said, it's either you get it or you don't, no matter what date you vote on it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm good with the May.
because I'd hate
Do
to
a
see
lot
us
of
spend that
education.
amount of money to
Yeah.
put everything together and then have limited voters show up because of weather or whatever, depending on the
We
time of
only need
year.
one yes.
You can't get into spring because then you're into vacations, and then, so if they know that this is the day they have to come out and vote on, maybe
Yeah.
it is best to keep it all the same,
Only
and we
need to
just
win
make
by
it very
one.
clear. It's not affecting your taxes, it's just like putting it from your checking to your savings, or your savings to your checking. So, I say we go with
I
that.
think, plus, it does save us the cost, and actually, ironically, the costs, I mean, depending on how we build the cost for the machines, the voting, would technically be coming from the capital fund, and so we'd be using our own funds to mark, so we're saving
Yes, we're saving money by doing it in May.
$5,000 just
Yeah,
now.
let's just go with May and, like I said, roll the dice, hope for the best, and then we'll go from there.
Lucky seven.
Yeah, May.
We've been pretty successful passing our budget, so I'm
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident it'll be fine.
cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if it's acceptable to the board, what we will do is I will take that information but I'd like to get the language to you and approved prior to May. And then obviously we'll spend our time crafting, which does make as part of our budget marketing process as well, explaining what this transfer is. And as well.
It is a transfer.
Or it's a transfer, exactly. It is a literal transfer, so. But we'll at least get the language sorted out. It's 45 days is minimum, but you can adopt that in December for.
Sure, yeah, and then it's done.
Then you're way ahead.
Is it the amount that makes that a public vote needed? Like, why is there even a vote needed for that?
Because it's
just a
capital.
transfer.
I believe if it were less than 70,
I think it's just the
Great question.
capital reserve.
oh yes, if it were just a repair reserve.
If
you'd
it
be
was
good, but
repair
'cause it's-
reserve, we'd be fine, yeah,
Yes.
it's capital.
Seems like it's already.
Truly, it's-
applied.
So if we just called capital repair reserve, we'd
It's
be
still
okay.
Yeah,
gonna
let's
cost money
change the
to
name.
do the normal voting and education.
Hmm.
as well,
Public
so-
vote to
Absolutely.
change the fund.
Do you?
I think so.
Oh, great.
What was it?
I think we would need if we just wanted to change the name of the fund.
So can we
we'd
change the name of the fund?
Need the public to approve that.
Mm.
To Christmas.
So we-
Yeah, we could go to the vote for that. It just would be hard to explain in the newsletter. I mean,
Okay.
Thank you very
I think
much.
your direction is clear?
Ow, Crystal, thank you.
Good. Okay.
Thank you, team.
Thank you.
So,
Back to the agenda.
3.7.
3.7. Approve Tim Flannery and Keith Bateman for extracurricular appointment chaperone for the 2017-18 school year for the WTA contract.
Motion. Second.
Questions or discussion?
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Lancy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.8, approve Peter Mesh for extracurricular appointment homework center for the 2017-18 school year as per the WTA contract.
Motion.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
No.
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Lancy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
Okay. 4.0, informational. 4.1, our next regular Board of Education meeting will be December 21st, 2017 at 7 p.m. 4.2, opportunity for the public to comment. Did we have anybody sign up for the second?
Yes, we have Micheline and Mr. Yeager.
Okay.
Micheline, guys. I miss you guys.
I know, we miss you too.
I have a couple questions. First, with the construction and 8th grade is working very hard for the graduation and everything that's exciting. Is the building will be done by the time the graduation comes? And if it's not, what's plan B or C? That part that we do the graduation is not ready.
I think we've made it very clear to the construction management folks that not being ready is not an option. So I'm sure Dr. Reardon does have a plan B going through his head just in case, but we're planning.
The project schedule at this point has it being completed in May, right? So there's some time and there isn't anything to say they're way off or anything like that, so we're reassured.
And there's
at
the
this point.
stage part and the building part.
Yeah.
Well said. So feasibly, worst case, perhaps that portion of the building would be done, and then perhaps the finishing work inside for the other classrooms, which we don't need till September, could be occurring in the summer. But if we need a plan B or C, we'll know.
Storm up.
10 on the lawn.
Another question is that I have is, with the pre-K, is that going to be, someone was asking me and I didn't know the answer, and I'm asking the same question. Is that is going to be paid, or is that is going to be by the state, by taxpayer, by how that is going to those kids be paid? Because people want to know.
So there won't be a cost to residents for their pre-K children. It would just be absorbed into the, I guess, the general budget. Is that the right term?
Correct.
So
Based on our
It's a cost.
based on our demographics, you know, we're not unlike, you know, a Troy or Rensselaer City. We're not a UPK provider. So it's like we're now again that could change if the state opened that piece up. But as we report out in our UPK committee, we're not eligible for massive amounts of grant funding or federal funding because we're not a high need school. So it'd be part of our general operating budget. We'd be a pre-K 8 school rather than a K 8 school.
All right, because the studies that I've been reading, they say even when we have that, we are already a small school and we don't have that many programs. Is that is going to be taken away from the kids, the older kids later on? Because it is a big cost for pre-K. So,
I understand your concerns, but you realize this went out to vote to the taxpayers in like 2013, 2014. I mean, this was a community vote that happened
Right.
5 years ago to go down this path, so there's really no turning back at this point. And we'll do our best to fight for every child. This board is committed
And
to
I-
putting in
I am
preschool and
too, but
fighting for
then-
all of our programs. And that's why we're
Yeah.
here.
In fact, actually, if I may throw on there too, I think with every budget constraint we've ever had, which is always there, we've never robbed Peter to pay Paul. You know, actually, the impact of children, despite many years of, you know, recessions and, you know, before we've cut boots on the ground, we've cut everything else. So we've never built a program at the back of another program. It would never be good practice.
We're solid.
Mhm.
all right. Now, I know that we have our budget, it's 100% better than a lot of districts, and, you know, which is good. So, another question is, with the 3.2, with the memorandum about the Swaneskey and Able Park, is that, because I asked the same question 2 years ago, and whoever told me there was nothing that we can do, you know, for you to be playing for your park at that time. So I'm glad that it's here. With being kids playing for middle school and trying to play up, do they have to choose their school if they don't?
1 year, no sports at any other school.
No sports, not just a sport that you tried for, but no sports.
Any sport whatsoever?
You're out for a year.
So I think that that have to be explained to parents that,
That's what he
and
said.
be very clear that,
yeah, we got quite a thorough discussion on this last month.
all right.
But yeah, if a kid wanted to do that, you know, I'm sure Dr. Reardon and Dr. Yotis, you know, they talk the kids through it and make sure that the parents were very clear that we're not going to drive your kid to that school to play that sport, and all the ramifications that happen if you try out and,
Right.
you know, you make it, or if you don't make it. You know, if you don't make it, that doesn't mean you have a spot here, because we have our own tryouts, and if you decided to try there rather than here, then you're probably going to miss the sport here also.
And the Commissioner's Reg has published a nice Q&A document that obviously we would distribute to families that, you know, to kind of answer those pieces of well, what happens if I transfer high schools after like what Eric said, you know, and it kind of explains those pieces.
So even that if he or she try out for a high school, any high school, and they don't make it, they still can play here with no.
If they make the tryouts, they have to come to tryouts and make the team.
Right.
But if they miss the tryouts because they went to the other tryouts,
Right. It's not fair to the kids that came here, that go here, that worked hard, you know. Are we gonna cut the last kid? You know, he worked hard or she worked hard to
Right,
make the team
right.
too. So if somebody tries to
Absolutely.
go somewhere else and it didn't work out for them there, you know,
yeah. So there's a lot of decisions and discussion that have to
So that
happen.
they may
if-
both take a
if-
spot away from
if
the
this
other.
happens.
Exactly.
Right.
I think.
Just to bring up, I mean, this is for educational, but Keith brought up a good point that if the student goes and plays at high school A, and because of a hardship in their life, they have to go to high school B, they still lose that year of eligibility. That does not take into account those types of situations. It's pretty black and white.
Exactly.
Right, right,
Good point.
right. I lost my thought. I had another question, but it's okay. Thank you for the answers.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes, thank you for the time.
Yep.
Whenever I see WTA contract, my wow jiggles. And you got WA contracts in here for a few things.
Mhm.
Is there dollar figures involved?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yes, as per the WTA contract, they're established in the contract.
The rates.
The rates.
So it's already established,
The rates are already established.
okay?
Like any unionized trade, there's a rate for each thing they do. They
I'd like
share.
to make a suggestion that when something like this comes up, and it's already pre-approved or whatever, we can put the figure in here. I may be the only one that wants it, but that's just a suggestion. Now, a couple things we talked about the vote in May, I may want to bring up. We have a lot of snowbirds in this town, a lot of seniors, and they're not going to want to be able, so May is probably the best bet. Now, I will suggest the previous month in the advertiser, a notice be put in about what the people are to expect instead of just sending out the note, because I think in the advertiser, you can put it in for next to nothing or maybe. So they get a little bit of a warning and say, oh, what's this about? What's this? And,
I guess the only thing I would say to that is our official paper of record is the Troy Record.
well, either way,
Yeah.
you know, they'll vote. It's not gonna hurt if you can get it for nothing.
Yep.
Now, I'd like to have a moment, it has something to do with what happened after the last board meeting. The superintendent and the board members allowed me that time.
Is it going to be brief, or are we
Yes,
talking
it's
like
gonna be brief.
45 minutes?
No.
If you're going to be brief,
Couple minutes.
you know, you can have a
Brief and I'd just say courteous, that's all I
Yeah.
ask.
Exactly.
What?
Brief and courteous.
Courteous, professional.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
After the last meeting, this principal asked me if we could talk. I said, yes, we could. Went out through the doors here and started a conversation. The conversation got heated and loud. Okay? At this time, I would like to make an apology to the principal and to all those that were out there that had no idea what we were talking about. Okay? However, one caveat. There was one person who wanted to put their 2 cents in, who I will not apologize to. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Does anybody else have anything before we close? No? Okay. I don't believe we need to have an executive session.
We're good, right?
Guess we can move right to 7.0, adjournment. Need someone to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? The ayes have it.